What's up everyone, welcome to the channel, and today I'm here to give you my full card predictions and betting breakdown for UFC Fight Night Song versus Gutierrez. Starting out with the prelims, we have Rayanne Amanda versus Talita Alencar. In this matchup, I'm going with Talita Alencar by decision. Rayanne Amanda, she has some solid grappling in her own right. She has some decent wrestling, she's got some pretty solid submissions, and she might be a BJJ black belt, I'm not entirely sure, but I know she has some high degree of jiu-jitsu. Not a bad grappler, but I think if she wins this fight, she's going to have to stuff the takedowns from Talita Alencar and then keep it on the feet and outstrike her for 3 rounds, which I don't really see her doing because Talita Alencar is the bigger fighter. When it comes to Rayanne Amanda, she has fought a lot of her career on the regional scene at the atomweight division, which is 105, and she moved up to 115 to fight Denise Gomes at strawweight, and then she has now found some more success on the regional scene and has now been re-signed and is now making her official UFC debut against Talita Alencar, who's also making her UFC debut. But Talita Alencar, great cardio. She shot 22 takedowns in the Contender Series and is very tough. When she was fighting on the Contender Series, she got 10-8'd in round 2. She won the first 2 rounds, but then it ended up being a draw just because of how dominant her opponent, Stephanie Luciano, was. I think that's her name. I'm not entirely sure. I could just be mentioning a random women's fighter she did not fight, but whoever she fought in the Contender Series had a very strong round 3, but she was very tough, kept shooting in on takedowns. She shot actually 10 takedowns in the 3rd round, didn't get any of them. That was because she was hurt so bad, and Luciano was having a lot of success with the stand-up. My point is, Talita is very tough. She's got very good cardio, and most importantly of all, she has fantastic jiu-jitsu. If you don't know who she is, look up her Brazilian jiu-jitsu record. Whatever it is, IBJFF. She's a champ literally everywhere. She has such high-level jiu-jitsu. It's probably bringing some of the best jiu-jitsu into any woman's division, into the entire women's roster. I think this fight will hit the ground, and when it hits the ground, she could find a submission or potentially just hold down Rayanne Amanda. I think she'll be able to hold her down for probably 2 of the 3 rounds. Maybe in the other round, she holds her down for some of it, but you give it to Rayanne Amanda based off of damage. So we're going 29-28 decision. Talita Alencar by being bigger, having better cardio, and just being tougher. Moving on to Tatsuro Taira versus Carlos Hernandez. I think Tatsuro Taira is a fraud, man. Everyone's saying he's such a good prospect. It's only because he's young and shows a high level of jiu-jitsu, when in reality, his wrestling doesn't look that good and his striking doesn't look that good either. I know he's young, so he will improve rapidly, and by the time he reaches his prime, he really could turn into something, but when it comes to right now, his stand-up looks horrible, and his wrestling entries, I'm not impressed with. I think Carlos Hernandez wins this fight. I think he could get it done by KO. I think he could get it done by decision. You might say I'm tripping. I understand Tatsuro is a massive, massive favorite, but I think people just look at the age of, oh, he's 24 years old, he's going to be improving rapidly, he'll be great by the time he's in his prime, he's such a good prospect that they're overrating how good he is right now. You have to look at the film, especially against the Shirez fight. Shirez was tagging him on the feet, he dropped him in round 1, got an official knockdown on the scorecards, and then the reason why he really was able to find so much success on the ground, which I understand he probably could have found the takedowns otherwise because Shirez doesn't have the greatest takedown defense, but Shirez jumped guillotine 2 times, actually 3 times, but in the 3rd round, he had some success and almost submitted Taira at the end of round 3, which was very, very interesting. But I'll say this much. Taira is allergic to a jab and a straight right. Carlos Hernandez has great straight punches. He's a pretty solid boxer, and he really did impress me against Bondar and had a pretty high-level fight against Victor Altamirano, whatever his fucking name is. He had a pretty impressive fight there. I've always believed in his boxing somewhat. He's got a solid chin. He's got great cardio, and he is pretty tough. He is kind of a dog, man. I'm not going to lie. I trust him to keep working and find himself out of the bad positions from a Tatsuro Taira or just stuff his takedowns outright. I'll tell you that right now. His takedown defense isn't that bad. I know we got submitted by Alan Nascimento, which is what a lot of people will bring up, but Alan Nascimento is so big for the flyweight division, potentially the biggest flyweight on the entire roster. He is so massive, and the reason why he was able to find the first takedown, which led to the second takedown, which when you look at the stats, you look at, oh, Carlos Hernandez was taken down twice from Alan Nascimento and subbed in round 1. He's got bad takedown defense and bad submission defense. I can't stress enough how physically dominant Alan Nascimento is, which is why I was going to be predicting him over Su Mudaerji pretty confidently. But what happened is because of the reach, Alan Nascimento threw a front kick right up the middle, which tagged Carlos Hernandez and kind of stunned him a little bit, which made him really aware of his striking defense. He really focused on his striking defense, and then Alan Nascimento shot in on a takedown, found his back, and then from there threatened the rear naked choke and found another takedown, and then eventually did find the rear naked choke. But I'm telling you right now, if that's Tatsuro Taira, I'm not really confident that he's going to find that rear naked choke because Alan Nascimento muscled his way into that choke. Rewatch that fight, I'm telling you right now, as soon as he got taken down, he popped back up to his feet, looked to separate the hands, was looking for the right things. Just Alan Nascimento climbed his back, threatened the rear naked choke, and muscled his way into that choke. If that's Tatsuro Taira can finish it. He's got high-level jiu-jitsu. I'm just saying this right now. Carlos Hernandez probably stuffs that takedowns and might separate. And when it's on the feet, he's the better striker, and he will touch him with the jab. He will touch him with his boxing, and he knows how to stuff a takedown. Unlike Edgar Chairez, who would stuff the takedown, sprawl his legs, do good, and then go for a whizza, kind of threaten a guillotine or even pull a guillotine. Taira definitely could have found the takedowns on Chairez if Chairez didn't pull guillotine, but I'll tell you this much right now. Anyone that can stuff a takedown could potentially stuff the takedowns from Tatsuro Taira, because I do not believe in his takedown entries whatsoever. He's not explosive. He's not that athletic. And on the feet, he just does not look that good to me. I can understand why you would think I'm tripping, but I've flipped my pick on this multiple times. I have to go with my heart. I have to go with Carlos Hernandez here. I have a decent amount of faith in this guy. Like, good cardio, dog. I've just seen levels to Carlos Hernandez's game to where I think it's better than anyone Taira's fought, and just stylistically is pretty hard for Taira. I think a lot of people are saying, why isn't Taira, fighting a fantastic opponent yet? And I'm telling you right now, because the UFC knows this guy will get fraud checked against any of the, maybe not any of the top-ranked fighters, but any top-ranked fighter that can stuff a takedown. I think Tim Elliott could be the guy that could fuck this guy up, honestly. Taira's not that bad. I don't think he's that bad. I think he's good jiu-jitsu. He could be good in the future. I'm sorry if I'm going on a long rant for this one, but I'm passionate about this one, man. I want to explain my side of Carlos Hernandez. He's the better striker, not bad takedown defense, and he's very good at popping back up to his feet. That's the way I see this fight. I think he out-damages him. Probably gets a 10-8 in one of the rounds, maybe. I could see like round 3 when he's really pouring on some of the cardio. I'm going to say 29-27 official decision. Taira will probably control him for one of the rounds or so, but he'll be able to out-damage him from one of the first 2 rounds, and then the 3rd round, he's really going to pour on his cardio, find some big shots against Taira, and find a potential 10-8 round. But maybe a a KO in round 3 from Hernandez. I could see a submission from the Taira side. I could see a decision where he holds him down. I just think Hernandez has shown improvements to his game, and he's going to win this on the feet. Moving on to the next fight, we have Luana Santos versus Stephanie Egger. I'm going with Luana Santos here. Not super confident. I don't think either one of these girls are very, great strikers. I think Luana Santos has more power in her hands. She is more physically dominant. She's bigger. But Stephanie Egger is the better grappler. Don't get me wrong, Luana Santos does have some good wrestling, but Egger can probably submit her. She's got the better submissions. The way I view this, Luana Santos, she's more powerful. She's more athletic. She's probably the better striker by a hair. Stephanie Egger, not a great striker. Neither is Luana Santos, but she's more physically imposing. And the wrestling, I just think she could stuff the takedowns from Stephanie Egger. And if Egger takes it to the ground, she can control it on top. Maybe I'm picking against Egger just because I've seen her look bad in so many performances. And when you're a women's MMA fighter that's been in the UFC for long enough, you will look bad at some point. But Egger really did not look that good against Irina Alekseeva, who did not look very good recently. So I'm going to be going with Luana Santos, who can really hurt her early. I think she'll probably get the first 2 rounds, then Egger will probably have a strong round 3 of controlled time, something like that. But I think Santos can stuff the takedowns coming her way and then beat Egger on the feet. Moving on to the next fight, we have Steve Garcia versus Costa. That was Steve Garcia, by the way. I don't know why I said it like that. We're going with Costa here. I broke this fight down last week, and it was scrapped for whatever reason. I kind of wish right now that I knew why it was scrapped, who was the injured fighter, or who wasn't able to make weight for whatever reason, or maybe they just moved it. But I think they did make weight before this fight was rescheduled. Anyways, I'm going with Costa because Steve Garcia will bring the pace, and he has a very fun style. He's going to go out there, pressure you. He's going to go out there, try to find the takedowns. He's going to go out there trying to brawl with you, trying to knock you out, go chin on chin. And Steve Garcia doesn't have the greatest chin for the style that he has because he gets hit so much. And Costa could absolutely get sparked, could get hurt early. Steve Garcia is a solid underdog. I believe he's like a 2-1 underdog. I really don't mind those odds. Maybe even bigger. I haven't really checked the odds if I'm being honest with you. But Costa has good counters off the back foot. I mean, he's a little bit patient if he entertains the brawling exchanges. I think he will a little bit early. I could see him getting clipped and making a massive mistake. I think he drops round 1 after Steve Garcia pressures, works in some takedowns, and maybe hurts him in round 1. And then Costa will really start to be a little bit more cautious. Something will be turned on into his mind about the true dangers of Steve Costa, and then eventually you find some counters off the back foot, play it patient, wins rounds 2 and 3, 29-28 decision with Costa, dropping him in one of the first 2 rounds. I'll say dropping him in rounds 2 and potentially 3, one of those rounds, and then Steve Garcia will drop him. I think this will be a very fun fight, pretty underrated. But yeah, I just can't trust Steve Garcia's chin. He doesn't get knocked out flat, but he still gets just dropped, turned off a lot to where I can't trust him to win a decision against Costa. But Costa could be one of these guys that has horrible fight IQ. I kind of take him that way, so we'll see what happens here. Interesting fight. I'm actually pretty excited. Moving on to the next fight, we have Hyung-Sung Park versus Shannon Ross. Going with Hyung-Sung Park, Shannon Ross has not had much success in the UFC at all because he has chin issues. I mean, he's not that bad of a fighter. If he had a granite chin, he'd probably win some of the matchups that he's lost. But he just got flatlined pretty badly. And that was pretty recently. I'm not entirely sure how recent that was. But he's been KO'd 3 times in his last 3 fights. 1 in the Contender Series and then 2 in the UFC so far. Just got flatlined. Hyung-Sung Park has power. I think he puts his lights out in round 1. He's probably the better striker. Probably the better grappler. Shannon Ross isn't a bad grappler in his own right, but I don't think he's very skilled anywhere. He's kind of well-rounded, but like not great at anything. I don't know if that makes sense. But Shannon Ross, he's hittable, doesn't have the greatest chin. Stand-up isn't horrible, but it's not fantastic. Hyung-Sung Park will find a big shot and finish him in the first round, in my opinion. Moving on to the next fight, we have Song Kenan versus Kevin Jousset. Going with Kevin Jousset here. I know a lot of people are on the Song Kenan side because Song Kenan has power, and he's dropped Ian Gary, and Ian Gary looks fantastic right now. But that's not the only way you can just view this fight. Just because he had success against a fighter that's coming up in the rankings doesn't mean he's him. He has power in the hands, and he has a boxing-heavy style, but he's not the greatest wrestler. He's not very well-rounded, and neither is Kevin Jousset. But I think he's the better grappler. He probably will work in some takedowns, and if it's on the feet, I still think he's the better fighter. I trust his chin somewhat. He's got good power in the hands, and Song Kenan is hittable. He's not very, I don't want to say, he's just not very diverse. He's somewhat one-dimensional, and he will get figured out as the fight goes a little bit later. Kevin Jousset has a solid jab, and that might be all you need to beat a guy like Song Kenan. He's got power in the hands, and he's not too bad off the back foot either. If he gets hurt, he's got grappling. I'm going with Kevin Jousset here, somewhat confidently. For someone that's only minus 135, I'm kind of surprised at that line. So Kevin Jousset, round 2 KO is the official prediction. Moving on to Jun-yong Park versus Andre Muniz. In this matchup, I'm going with Jun-yong Park. I think he's the better striker, and he's got good takedown defense. Andre Muniz doesn't have good wrestling, so this fight will be on the feet, and I think Jun-yong Park has the better cardio, the better striking, and he's decent at staying at range. He's got a good jab. He's just very fundamentally well-rounded, and that will bring him success in this division. And Andre Muniz, bad wrestling offense. He's got great jiu-jitsu, don't get me wrong. He can submit Jun-yong Park if I'm being entirely honest, but I think Jun-yong Park stuffs the takedowns and just cooks him on the feet. I think he gets a round 3 KO, overwhelming him with volume, finding a big shot right around then. Andre Muniz does have knockout power and can knock out Jun-yong Park, who has been knocked out by Gregory Rodriguez. But Gregory Rodriguez is a very solid fighter who has a lot of power in his hands. So don't fault him too much for that one. But Jun-yong Park looked very solid recently. I think he's on a 3 to 4 fight winning streak, and he's shown improvements in his game. He's well-rounded. He might even be able to survive all the submissions from Andre Muniz, could potentially control him on top. He's just impressed me overall because he's so good at mixing in takedowns, whatever it is, but I think he's smart enough to keep this fight on the feet and beat Andre Muniz on the feet. He's going to find a lot of success there, so I don't know why he would want to mix in takedowns against the BJJ nerd. So Jun-yong Park, round 3 KO, official pick. Moving on to the next fight is Tim Elliott versus Su Mudaerji. Going with Tim Elliott here. I'm not super confident because Su Mudaerji is a very dangerous striker. He's got quick hands, and he can absolutely put Tim Elliott's lights out. Su Mudaerji recently got submitted by Alex Perez. Actually, excuse me, Matt Schnell. I always get them confused for whatever reason. But I think Tim Elliott can find the takedowns. He's got some good wrestling. He's got very good pressure. He doesn't have the greatest chin. He can get sparked, but I don't expect it to happen. I think he's going to find the takedowns early. If Matt Schnell can get the takedowns on you, Tim Elliott will. He's a much better wrestler. He's got some solid submissions. We're going Tim Elliott, round 2 submissions. I think he'll find the takedowns in round 1. Keep taking him down, and then round 2 will come around. He'll eventually find a rear naked choke over Su Mudaerji, who has a massive hole in his game, which is his submission defense. But don't get me wrong. He can find a KO early. At any point of this fight, he will be dangerous. As the fight goes later, Tim Elliott does have the better cardio, and he is this vet that can beat those guys that aren't fantastic, that have holes in their game, because he will find it. He's pretty well-rounded as well with good cardio. He has a very annoying style on the feet as well, where he's going to pressure you, force you to be on the back foot a little bit, and I don't think Su Mudaerji has the greatest counters. Interesting matchup, should be fun, unless it's Tim Elliott just laying and praying for 3 rounds, but I don't think that will be the case because of Su Mudaerji's lacking submission defense. So round 2, Tim Elliott submission. Moving on to the next fight, we have Nasrat Haqparast versus Jamie Mullarkey. Going with Jamie Mullarkey, although he's looked horrible and arguably lost to John McDessie. And Nasrat Haqparast was able to outstrike John McDessie and beat him to a unanimous decision. They both did, actually. But Jamie Mullarkey arguably lost that fight. A lot of people did think he lost that fight, and he didn't look good. What he does have is a mixed approach, and Nasrat Haqparast doesn't have the greatest takedown defense. Has he used takedowns in the past? Yes, but Jamie Mullarkey will be able to get him down to the ground, and I think that will be what works for him in this fight. That should be his bread and butter in this fight, mixing in the takedowns along with his striking. And Nasrat Haqparast is very one-dimensional on the feet when it just comes to his boxing. I've seen Jamie Mullarkey, target the legs a little bit, use some body kicks, be more than just a boxer. He has some power in his hands, and he has looked horrible recently. It's hard for me to trust him, and his chin, it just really hasn't held up. He's got knocked out by Jalen Turner and Muin Gaffarov. But if we're looking back on it, he was able to take down Muin Gaffarov like 3 or 4 times, who has looked pretty decent, especially in his recent fight against Nathaniel Wood. I think he has pretty solid and underrated wrestling, which he will go to in this matchup as he shoots takedowns on almost all of his opponents, and he will find him against Nasrat Haqparast. And Haqparast will not be good at getting back up to the feet. And he'll work in the leg kicks as well, where we saw Nasrat Haqparast getting chewed up on the feet with his leg kicks, with the leg kicks in his most recent fight against Landon Quinones. So Jamie Mullarkey is the pick. I'm not super confident because I think Haqparast in a pure striking matchup wins this fight. But the takedowns from Jamie Mullarkey will really bring problems to Haqparast. Moving on to the next fight, we have Anthony Smith versus Khalil Rountree. We're going with Khalil Rountree. Anthony Smith is taking this on short notice. That's obviously something to note. And also, he gets his legs chewed up by everybody. Johnny Walker did it. Magomed Ankalaev. I don't want to keep going through the list because it can go on for quite some time. But massive hole in a striking game is his leg kick defense. He's a decent wrestler. He's pretty well-rounded. It feels like a lot of these guys on this card are well-rounded for the most part, but Anthony Smith, he can find the takedowns. He could submit Khalil Rountree, or he could just ride him out to a decision. When it's on the feet, Khalil Rountree is very dangerous, and he has shown some decent takedown defense throughout his career, and I don't think Anthony Smith is that great offensively to really hold down Khalil Rountree and find these takedowns that he's going to need to find. I think Khalil Rountree stuffs the takedowns, keeps it on the feet, and just absolutely obliterates his leg kick defense, his leg kicks, because he won't be able to defend them, and he'll probably find a big shot around round 2 because he'll be a little bit passive, a little bit, he's going to keep it technical for the first round to make sure he doesn't get taken down and kind of figures out the rhythm of Anthony Smith's takedown timing. And once he does that, he's going to find a massive shot in round 2 to put Anthony Smith's lights out after cooking him in round 1 with the leg kicks and takedown defense. Moving on to Song Yadong versus Chris Gutierrez. I'm going with Song Yadong. I actually really do believe in his future moving forward and recently made a video about why I think he's the dark horse of this division. I recommend going and checking out that video, but we're here to talk about the prediction versus Chris Gutierrez. I'm going with him round 2 KO over Chris Gutierrez. I think he's the better striker, and he's the better wrestler. When it comes to the striking, he is quicker, he is more powerful, he's more athletic, and he is more technical. The only interesting part about this on the feet is the leg kicks from Chris Gutierrez. And the only other way I could really see Chris Gutierrez finding success and potentially finding a KO is the hole in the game where Song Yadong, when he goes to sprawl a takedown, when someone feints a takedown, his chin is there to get hit. I think Corey Sandhagen could have done this and potentially was setting it up. But if Chris Gutierrez shoots in on a couple of takedowns, feints a takedown, and then Song Yadong goes for a full sprawl, and then Chris Gutierrez times a knee, that could knock out Song Yadong. But I don't think Chris Gutierrez is going to want to shoot in on takedowns against Song Yadong because Song Yadong is really good at doing damage within the clinch, and on the exit of the clinch as well, he's very good at landing a couple of very powerful shots, targeting the body, whatever it may be. I don't think Chris Gutierrez is going to make it a game plan to really be setting up that feint. If he does, it could bring success and he could find the knockout, but overall Song Yadong has a very solid chin as well, and when he's hurt, I trust him to be able to shoot in on takedowns and recover on the ground because we have seen Chris Gutierrez get taken down by Ale Tang and Pedro Munoz, who aren't that good of wrestlers, and I think Song Yadong probably has better offensive wrestling than them. Now on the feet, Song Yadong has a boxing-heavy approach with some solid leg kicks, body kicks, head kicks as well, but he starts out with a boxing-heavy approach, kind of sets up his feints, has a very solid jab, and Chris Gutierrez, in my opinion, doesn't have the greatest boxing, especially boxing defense as well. We saw Ale Tang be able to really pressure him and get him up against the cage in very, dangerous positions for Chris Gutierrez, and Chris Gutierrez was kind of let off the hook every single time. When I watch that fight, I'm looking at Ale Tang and saying, why are you throwing one hook, letting him circle, and then backing off the pressure? Throw a combo, throw a jab, throw anything but a hook, and just allowing Chris Gutierrez to read the same thing over and over again. But Chris Gutierrez, he's good at circling and finding leg kicks. That's what he's really good at. He trains with Jonathan Martinez, who has some very solid leg kicks in his own right, probably the best leg kicks in the entire division. And that's probably why Chris Gutierrez has developed such great leg kicks, is because he is such a good sparring partner to learn from. We are going to learn how Song Yadong's leg kick defense really is, which will be pretty valuable, but which is also kind of ironic because the bantamweight division really doesn't have many kickboxers, and a lot of the best strikers have very boxing-heavy approaches, and they don't target the legs over and over again. But Jonathan Martinez is a guy who really could reach the top of the bantamweight division, and this could potentially show us a little bit into how a matchup versus where Jonathan Martinez fights Song Yadong would look into. But I think Song Yadong will be able to check the leg kicks. We have seen him check leg kicks from Corey Sandhagen, Ricky Simone, and other opponents pretty well. Not perfectly, but I think he'll be able to survive the onslaught from Chris Gutierrez. And the thing about Chris Gutierrez, when he throws leg kicks, a guy like Song Yadong, who's very quick, can find a counter on him. He has pretty solid counters off the back foot. I think Song Yadong is better pressuring. He's better off the back foot. He's more powerful. He's more athletically dominant. But he's not perfect. Like, he does get hit. It's very hard to hit him clean. I think Chris Gutierrez probably has to find the knockout or really find the perennial nerve on Song Yadong, something like that, or just overall expose a massive hole in his leg kick defense, which I don't think is going to be the case, because even if he does, Song Yadong can take him down and hold him there, similarly to how Pedro Muniz was able to do. Song Yadong, round 2 KO, I think he'll be setting up his hands a little bit, working in some legs at the beginning of round 2, and then towards the ends of round 2, he'll uncork a massive shot, potentially up against the cage, maybe a nice combo where he targets the body and heads upstairs, clips Chris Gutierrez, because I don't think he has the greatest striking defense. With that being said, that's going to conclude this video. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video.